Hello, everyone. Welcome to another in a series of interviews with prominent improv people presented by Compass Improv in St. Louis. And our guest is the illustrious, you know him, you love him. He's zooming in from Los Angeles, California area. It's BJ Lange. Hey, BJ.
Hey, Bob Baker. Wow, that setup, I felt like I have a lot to live up to. I don't know how fancy I am, but thank you for that.
Did you notice how I jumped into my radio voice there prior to the show? I'm going, hey, man, are you ready for an interview? And suddenly it turns on. I'm going, hey, welcome.
Yeah, it did. It like before the show, it sounded like you were gargling with marbles, and now all of
Exactly.
us. Yeah, very well done. I'm
Thank
impressed
you.
by
Thank
your
you very
stage
much.
presence.
Marble garbling is actually a trick of the trade, I must say. So welcome, BJ, and we're excited. This is our fourth interview in this series. You follow in some pretty good footsteps with Bill Cott and Liz
Mhm.
Allen and Ed Reggie. We got Cooper Shaw coming up next month. But
Awesome.
for those of you, for people who may not know, I'm just going to list sort of your quick bio points here. We're going to dive a little deeper into some of these things, but I'm just going to
Ooh,
let people know who you are. You're originally from St. Louis. So I'm going to find out a little bit more about that. But for years, you've lived out in the LA area, where among other things, many other things, you lead the Improv for Veterans program at Second City in Hollywood. You are a retired U.S. Air Force Reserve medic and pilot.
mhm, mhm.
You have been on MTV, on Jimmy Kimmel Live, Comedy Central, and a lot more. You've also performed and trained at IO West, which I guess is no longer in existence, I believe, right? I know.
Correct.
I'm sorry to bring up a sensitive, dearly departed Upright Citizens Brigade and the Groundlings,
Mhm.
and so there's a lot to unpack there. And we're friends. I know a lot about you, but I know that I am either going to uncover some things tonight that I don't know about you. So I hope you're ready for that.
Mhm.
You are. Just to remind you again that so this is presented by Compass Improv, which is a non-profit here in St. Louis, kind of dedicated to fostering the growth and spreading the good deeds of this awesome improv art form. And my name is Bob Baker. I am on the Compass board. I also teach short form, specialize in musical improv, and been doing this for many years. Also, these interviews are tied into what we've been doing is tying them into a charity, a nonprofit selected by our guest, and this is the first time that our guest is actually on the board of, and it's kind of a part of, I believe, yeah, this Mission Warriors, which we're going to find out more about it. So the plan for the evening is in the first segment here, will be asking BJ a lot of questions. Also, I want to give a shout out to John Chapin, who's handling the tech behind the scenes. Thank you very much, John.
Thanks, John.
Um, but towards the end, the second half, you will be able to ask BJ questions, and he will answer them too. It's funny how that works from both sides. John's going to be keeping an eye on your and you leave your comments in on the Compass Festival or the Compass Improv. Yes, type and post them there. John will copy them and paste them into our Zoom chat box here so we can see them, and we'll kind of open up for questions a little bit later. So,
And by
all
the
right.
way, Bob, if people watch this later on over on the Compass YouTube and they post a question here on the YouTube, I will also answer it there. So if you're not
Oh,
watching it live, I'll even go back.
you'll
That's
check
I,
in
I am full service, Bob. This is not a one-way
after
street.
the fact. You got to set reminders on your phone and all that to check on the YouTube. So,
Yep.
all right, there you go. He said it here first. Here's one thing I always like to ask improvisers to start off. I've been starting this off. I hope it's not doesn't get old as an opening question. But can you pinpoint, BJ, the moment in your life when you first discovered or became aware of improv specifically?
Studying with Bill Cott at the Improv Trick in St. Louis at the Business Incubator on Cherokee Street. That I knew about improv before. I had taken a few workshops,
Mhm.
around, and even Ed Reggie was one of my first real improv teachers outside of college. Um, but really going in with Bill, going through the full program, I think I was at a point in my life where I wanted to really dig deep into
Mhm.
improv, and that was the time for me
Cool.
in the early 2000s in St. Louis, right there on Cherokee Street. That's
I
why I'm
remember it.
repping the Cardinals hat.
I caught the yeah. I wasn't actively involved in the in the heyday of it, but I think there was something Comedy Connection or something was going on there
Mhm.
in that same space that I caught. I caught. So, but did you first discover or become aware of improv in maybe in college through act or
Well, so I knew about improv, I guess in high school. Like, obviously, I had heard of the Second City, but
Mhm.
until you really go and you see improv, and at that point, I hadn't really been to any places. In fact, my friend Angie Patton in St. Louis, she was doing city improv there at Union Station.
All right.
She invited me to see some shows. And outside of who's a actually, I should go back even further, as I think a lot of people can relate. I used to watch Who's Line when I was a kid. So I'd race home and watch Who's Line, preferably the old BBC version, of course.
Yes.
And I would go back and I would watch that and I'd be excited, but I didn't really have a connection to St. Louis until I went to City Improv and I saw it and I knew it existed. And then when I got involved on a performance level, not just like a study, because I studied doing improv at St. Louis Community College at Florissant Valley, doing some theater classes there. And we did some improv stuff, but it wasn't really until I studied with Bill to where I went, this is an actual opportunity for me that I could really follow this track in my acting career, and go on this highway, this train. And
Very
I have been
very
on
cool.
ever since.
So
Yeah,
two of our previous guests were instrumental in your evolution and at a younger age. Yeah, I actually
totally.
did improv at Merrimack at the other or one of the other community colleges here, but
Wow.
that was 1985, and there's a
Yeah,
bunch of theater friends and we were interested in improv, and one of the teachers actually created like an advanced summer class just to kind of cater to our interest in this, and then we formed our first troupe. I don't know, it's but this is
that's
about you.
awesome.
Yeah, 85. That's before Who's Line and everything. But let's see here. But so you were born and raised in St. Louis, correct?
Born and raised in St. Louis. I'm a Riverview Gardens graduate. I am a proud North County edge of North City boy, and yeah, I mean that's my heart and soul. Oh, I spent a lot of my summers in Texas, so my parents separated. So my school years in St. Louis, my summers were in Texas.
And you're wearing our beloved Cardinals cap right there. I know you're playing for the home team here. Uh,
Absolutely.
that's awesome. So when did you like? What happened? How long have you been in LA, and when did that move transpire?
So I studied, like I said, theater at St. Louis Community College, really kind of developed who I was in the acting world between the ages of like 19 and 22. I was doing a lot of community theater in St. Louis. In
Mhm.
fact, I was doing dinner theater, a lot of it at Dave and Buster's, worked for Murder Mystery Players for a long time, was starting to get into auditioning and whatnot. And right after I was done at St. Louis Community College, I actually auditioned
Mhm.
to be the stunt boy for the Stephen DC morning show, which back in the day that I worked on the show, it was the number one show in St. Louis on radio. We were broadcast in, I think, 23 states. We were like the 16th largest syndicated morning radio network on the air. So I started on the show in 2000 and was on the morning show until about 2003 and a half, 2004, as the stunt boy, doing all the pranks, which got me in a lot of trouble occasionally.
Wow.
Uh, so there's definitely some stuff there to unpack. Um, I ended up doing a lot of host and MC stuff. Eventually, in 2006, I found myself down in Panama City Beach, Florida, hosting some spring break stuff. Many of those items were attached with MTV and Maxim magazine. So started doing a lot of like live event hosting and MC stuff. And eventually I went on a tour. It was touring in a mall concert series with ABC Family. And I was bouncing in and out of LA occasionally. And I knew that I either needed to go to New York or LA if I really wanted to follow through with my acting passion. Keep in mind, my goal was really to do acting, in film and TV. And I love the stage, grew up on the stage, but I really wanted to do film and TV. But this spirit that I had, my energy is certainly a lot of hosting. And I hosted a show for MTV for a while called Game Riot, which was an Xbox and PC gaming competition tour mixed with a battle of the bands kind of a thing. And then in 2008, I came out to LA to kind of test the waters on a more permanent thing. Was out here for a few months. And then in November of 2009 was my official full move out here. So I've been out here now since November of 2009, technically. And this apartment that I'm in, and by the way, here, I'll turn off my virtual background so you can see what it looks like in my little weird Hollywood studio apartment, what I call my Hollywood Square. But I've been here for, I think, almost 9 years. And look right there above my kitchen right there.
Yes,
Bob.
and
that is for you. Yes, and
yes, and thank you so much. Well, yeah. That's a pretty well-rounded background in performance. So I have a similar thing. Yeah, I've done traditional theater, scripted plays, and improv sort of came out of that. And then the MC thing, and you're also the fact that you did the stunt boy. I think I might have mentioned to you, I worked a little with Stephen DC, but much earlier doing song parodies for them, like in the 90s. The stunt boy thing, you're a guy that has a lot of energy. I've noticed that. And so it doesn't surprise me that maybe at a younger age you were doing, who's the guy, Johnny Knoxville? Is he the guy that does all the crazy?
Exactly. I adore Johnny, and it's funny because I later met him a few times at some of the events for MTV, and like I told him how much he meant to me. Not only, and I say that because people are like, he's just a dumbass, and he's actually quite brilliant as far as business is concerned, and using his talents to kind of, follow through with that. But yeah, I was totally doing those goofy things on the radio. This is like right as internet video really started to become a thing. I dressed as a woman and went to the gynecologist. That specific prank, by the way, almost got me ineligible to join the military, which I did later in life, because I got in trouble for that. I also got arrested over at SWIC, Southwestern Illinois College, formerly Belleville Area College, where I went into the college and started asking stupid questions to the history professor and got in trouble for that. I was in court for 2 years over that.
Oh my God. So you were daring. Yeah. So those are some of the things I did not know about you that I'm finding out here. But even as an MC, and there's an art to it, but you have to improvise. I mean, you might have
tons.
You know what you're introducing, but you got to be on your feet and listening and paying attention and shifting when things don't go right.
You know when I think that really hit for me, Bob, and it is kind of, first of all, I will say thank you for having me as a guest, because you and I, as you mentioned, we have talked a million times, but I don't think we've actually sat down and like really cracked open, the book and like, sat over a drink and had pretzels and, really got to know each other, because we're always talking like after a show or we're talking business. And so it's really kind of neat to kind of break this down. But in 1999 into 2000, I worked at Six Flags for a virtual reality gaming company. And it was a leasee company. They leased the property, but they managed this virtual reality game that Six Flags, not only in St. Louis, but around the Six Flags network, that they owned in a lot of their parks. And there we were on a green screen and we would pop up in the player's headset, but we were backstage and we would interact with the animation. So I would say, Bob, watch out, he's going to get you. And I would duck and then you would shoot him. And, but it was all improvised, right? So that really strengthened it. And then when I would go out front on the microphone in front of the theater to get people to come play as the barker, that really helped me as well. Not just because I was at Six Flags, but then I got hired on corporately. I became a corporate trainer. I traveled the world. I went to Germany for them, and they did a lot of corporate things using the interactive technology. And this was in my early 20s. I mean, I was a baby, but it really helped me to grasp what I can do, not only developing things and characters on the fly, but I think when I combined that with my love and then the eventual strategies behind improv and how it can help you as an actor, especially because I wanted to focus on comedy, it was just like a nuclear reaction, and I combined it all together, and that's kind of what happened.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love it when that seemingly, well, yeah, a variety of things come together in a very synergistic way, you know. Let's just kind of hit on some of the brushes, like brushes with greatness thing. So I guess the MTV stuff that you did was primarily the hosting that you did on some of those things like Spring Break and different
Yeah,
things, right?
correct. And then Maxim Magazine, I hosted a lot of their evening events at some of the like clubs we would have.
Mhm.
And so people always think like, oh, you were on this show and this and this and this, but really there was a lot of it's marketing dollars, right? It's just marketing, right? It's literally they're trying to sell products or whatever by their sponsors. So I would have to memorize all this stuff about, LG was like a sponsor and, all of these different companies, movies that we would promote. And then I would literally talk about it either on camera or to the live audience. 80% of what I did down there was just live audience, keeping the energy up for whenever we would introduce a band or if we would have a guest to keep them there. So I would play games with these people and things like that. That was a lot of what I did.
But what a great learning experience. Yeah, to get people's attention, keep, and
Yeah.
motivate them to do stuff. What was the Jimmy Kimmel experience there? What?
So I guess I got an email from Cecilia Pleva, I believe that's her name. She's still the casting director for Jimmy Kimmel. And she said, "Are you available? Can you make it down here today?" And I said, "Yeah, I live right up the street. I live like 2 blocks north of Hollywood Boulevard, which is where Kimmel shot at the El Capitan Theater." I said, "Yeah, I can be there." She goes, "Great. Like, we're going to have you play an alien." I'm like, "An alien?" So then when I heard the monologue, because she let us see the monologue of what they're doing. So the whole concept was I was an alien who I will say, all right, so I took it off of YouTube because like they have the rights to it and like I haven't reached out to them. But if you message me, I'll send you a link so that you can see it if you're interested in watching.
Okay.
You cannot tell it's me except for that it's long or that I'm tall and I have very long fingers.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole bit was people doing things with aliens because he said something in his monologue about how the aliens are getting closer and they might also be here already. So like I had lunch with the lady and I got to improvise the most of it. I mean, it was basically set up in the same thing as like Curb Your Enthusiasm, where it was like the premise is like have lunch with an alien and then what could happen. And we just played with it. So it was a lot of fun.
So you like shot it in the afternoon and then they edited together the best parts and played it during the show?
Very fast. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's fun. Is Comedy Central? Now, was that an MC gig or was that what was that?
Doing Comedy Central stuff. I was on the Kroll Show. I did Kroll Show. And then if you're a fan of Workaholics, you'll see me. First of all, this is highly unlikely, but if you own the DVDs, I'm on the Workaholics DVDs, like the bonus features, because they came to Spring Break in 2011. They were one of our guests. So I'm interviewing. This is like when their show first launched. So that was really exciting. And then you'll see me on Kroll Show. I played a forensics scientist. I mean, I was mid-20s at this point. I can't think of anything else.
That's okay. So you mentioned, meeting like Johnny Knoxville after you had had been influenced by him in St. Louis, and this is totally surface level kind of stuff. But and since you've been in LA, you've done a lot of these cool things. Who are some of the most like? What were some of your most favorite moments meeting somebody that you admire or a celebrity?
Well, okay, so here's something that like I don't tell a lot of people. People that know what I did in the military and know, obviously I need to work, right? Like I have to work. So I work as a medical advisor and occasionally work as a med tech on 911 on Fox. So we work as subject matter experts to come in and show the principal cast what to do. So I work under our main lead med tech who reads the script and says, "Oh, okay, well on here, like they don't want an everyday actor to do something. They want somebody like myself, an experienced person, to do whatever because of my background in military medicine and working in EMS, I'm familiar with what needs to be done. So basically, I'm a glorified featured extra often, and then subject matter experts. So I get to work with, like 2 weeks ago, I walked up on Angela Bassett and, okay,
wow.
Hey, Miss Bassett, pleasure to meet you. First of all, congratulations on your NAACP Image Award. That was awesome. And on this scene, it looks like you're going to be helping with the IV here, even though she plays a cop on the show. So here's what you're going to do, because she might not know what to do in real life. She's like, I've never done this. So we set it up to make it look real. We often, like, anytime there's people loading a patient onto a gurney or onto the ambulance, well, they want real medics to do that because we have the experience. So I do that quite a bit. That's kind of a neat little side actor hustle. I got to marry my not only my improv, but my acting and my military and my medical knowledge into a little side hustle as an actor here in LA to work. In fact, tomorrow I'm doing a COVID test. I'll just leave it at this. I'm doing a COVID test to go work on another Fox show. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
I can't say too much, but
now, you mentioned Angela Bassett. Anybody else in that role as that you can talk about?
Obviously, all of the entire cast of 911 I've pretty much met.
Okay.
I did the same thing months ago with my friend. I did it years ago on Code Black. So I also worked on Code Black quite a bit.
Okay.
Who really? Well, speaking of MC work and whatever, it's funny because I pushed away for a long time in my career, and this is like getting down to the heart of the actor and like what keeps you going and all that. But for the longest time, Bob, I pushed away hosting work because I didn't want to be known as a host. I didn't mind doing it for, a one-off or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I'm an actor. I want to be on the stage or in film or on TV. Like, that's what I wanted to do. So I kept pushing it away. But another kind of claim to fame, I was Selena Gomez's MC for the summer of, I believe it was 2013. She had done a movie called Monte Carlo, and Bill Cott knew that obviously I MC and all that stuff. So he referred to someone that they were looking for an MC, and Bill's like, well, call BJ. So I ended up touring with her and was her MC for an entire summer. It was awesome. We traveled together, and then listen to this, Bob. Like maybe 8 months later, I'm down the street from my house at the W Hotel on Hollywood Boulevard. And on Sundays, they used to do jazz night. It's fantastic. It's free. It's open to anyone. And it's a top-notch jazz band that plays anything. They'll do jazz renditions of like pop songs. It's awesome. And I'm sitting in the lobby, and I hear someone say, now my nickname back in the day, I used to go by Honky.
Okay.
It's a long story. It came from high school. And I hear Honky, and I looked over, and it's Selena Gomez sitting next to, at that time, Justin Bieber. And I was like, you remembered me? Like, how do you remember
No way.
me? So, yeah. And you know what, though? That meant a lot to me. Not only that she remembered who I am, but she's such a sweetheart and like just a genuine person.
Yeah.
To remember somebody like that. I mean, yeah, we were together for like 6 months, but like, it was just me like introducing her, doing Q&A, flying to the next city. It was just work,
Right. That's pretty
So-
cool, and you get to see Biebs too. Bieber.
Exactly.
Bieber. So you made a number of references to your service, and it was in the Air Force. What drew you? Like, what motivated you to do that? Did your dad, your grandparents,
totally.
or is it a family thing, or?
Well, you made the reference right there, Bob, and they say that the military, generally speaking, I mean, this is a true story. It's a family business. So my grandfather and my grandmother, get this, were Navy veterans. So my grandmother, my step grandmother, was a WAVE in the Navy. That's the Women's Auxiliary Volunteer. Like this was before ladies were, in the military, but she was one of the first ones in World War II. So that was pretty neat. So I followed, looking up to my grandfather. My half brother Michael is a Marine. My uncles are Marines. My stepfather is a retired Army vet. So I always wanted to serve. Now, I will say to some degree that need for service that I felt is the same reason where I want to be on stage, especially in an improv standpoint, like, because it's just, we don't know what's going to happen, right? We don't know what's going to happen in improv, but I have this need where I need to serve my partner and I need to serve the audience with this art. So I kind of get that same feeling there. But growing up, I was a law enforcement explorer with St. Louis County Police because I thought maybe I'd want to go into police. So, I got out of the Boy Scouts and I joined exploring and did that. This need for service was always over me. I love to be helpful. Obviously, that's why I went into working, as a medic, just to help people. Well, I moved out to Los Angeles and here I am approaching my 35th birthday. Well, come on, you're probably not going to go active duty at that point. And obviously I had a full-time career, in my acting career. So I knew I couldn't necessarily go full-time, but maybe I could join the Guard or Reserve and go part-time and still focus on my career and do 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year and make it like that. So I ended up enlisting into the Air Force Reserve on my 35th birthday.
Wow.
And if you don't know the story, I went through basic training. I went to my medic program in the middle of my Air Force medic program at Fort Sam Houston. I ended up developing cancer. So I had surgery and chemotherapy. I finished my medic program. I was doing my clinical rotations. I'm weeks away from coming home. My time had been extended. This is a very long and still very tight in my chest, very heartfelt situation that developed. But I got put through a medical evaluation board. And unfortunately, I was put on temporary medical retirement due to my cancer diagnosis. I was fortunate to be able to complete my program and serve a little bit in some capacity doing my clinical rotations as a medic, but I never really got to do the job that I wanted to do and that I had dreamt of since I was a kid. Now, I realized that I didn't choose to get cancer, obviously, but that does affect me, when I look back at my service, and that I'll never get to do the opportunity, I'll never get to deploy and go do aeromedical evacuation like I dreamed of, because I actually fell in love with being a medic. It was my goal to do public affairs because of my career path, and that I had served in Civil Air Patrol for the preceding 10 years before I enlisted. I'm a private pilot, and then served as a public affairs officer in CAP, and still I volunteer with Civil Air Patrol. So unfortunately, it didn't happen in the way that I wanted to, right. But a lot of benefits came out of me, unfortunately, getting cancer. There were a lot of blessings in disguise, as evidence is right here, which this is me teaching with the, not only the Air Force Wounded Warrior program, where I'm the comedy coach for Air Force Wounded Warrior program, not to be confused with the Wounded Warrior Project. This is a DoD program, but situations like this, like the commander at Keesler Air Force Base sent me last year, just before COVID, to go down to Mississippi and work with her base leadership to show them the benefits of improv, because she had heard about what I do with all the wounded warriors and said, "Can you do it with my team?" I was like, "Absolutely." So it's weird. It's like my life is blending, Bob. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. Another example about how just because one door is shut doesn't mean another opportunity doesn't present itself, and you really made the most of it. And you've been very open about on Facebook and about your health issues and overcoming that. And I'm glad that and I've heard this from many people, even though we wish that wouldn't happen to us, we often discover gifts, blessings in it along the way, and I know that you have too.
Bob, somebody told me, and I think this was an old chief friend of mine, an Air Force chief, who said, and this is easier said than done. So if you're going through something right now in your life, take this with a grain of salt, but try your best to think like this. Because I was very sad and disappointed, especially when my cancer relapsed and I went into depression really bad. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" say, "Why is this happening for me?" Mm-hmm.
One simple word. Well, this is a great opportunity to just transition into the charity, the nonprofit that you selected, which you're involved in. So, what is Mission Warriors? You were involved in its founding, and I know a little about this. I think it's a great idea, but tell tell us what that is.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Bob, this is the first time we are announcing publicly that we just got on Facebook the ability to donate. We just said it. We just literally like 2 days ago got it going. So
Cool.
if you're not able to donate through the channel here, you can go over to Mission Warriors on Facebook and select your charity of choice.
And I didn't cue him, but John may have already pulled up. I had a screenshot of the
Cool.
of the Facebook page that we might be seeing now. I think, and so that's awesome. But what when was it founded, and what was the motive, or what's the mission?
Absolutely. So I got put on temporary medical retirement in July of 2016. At the time, obviously, I was adjusting back into my civilian full-time career. I was back in Los Angeles, now trying to figure out, would I get back in the Air Force? What's going to happen? Well, because I was put on temporary medical retirement due to a medical evaluation board to determine my future in the Air Force, I was enrolled into the Air Force's Wounded Warrior Program, what we call AFW2. When I went to my first care event, which is kind of like the big camp where all the wounded warriors go that are enrolled in the program to do adaptive sports together, to do different art modalities and all these things, and to connect and really to get resources and new friendships who understand what you might be going through. I met 3 people that were in my initial Air Force Wounded Warrior group. And my friend Dave Long, who retired about 1.5 years ago from the Air Force after serving 20 plus years, he was in my group. And then my friend Stacy Shaffrin, who's still active duty. She's an active duty major. I believe she might have got lieutenant colonel. And so we're in this group together. And when I started teaching improv for the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program about 1.5 years, 2 years later, when I got my contract with the wellness and resiliency side of the program, Dave had already had this idea that we need to bring the arts to the military as well, and to the veteran community, different types of arts as well, because he was teaching photography at that time for the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program and for other veterans organizations, showing what he could do. That was his side hustle. He's a great photographer and teaches how to edit and things like that, and showcase how you can live through whatever you might be experiencing through your photography as a cathartic tool. So he founded in the state of Texas Mission Warriors, and about 6 months ago, we did our first sample of classes. We currently have a partnership with the Air Force Association, which is AFA. So we take any Air Force veteran, and certainly any Air Force Wounded Warrior who can do or benefit from any of our different classes that we offer. And we have a thing that's going on right now. If you Google Mission Arts Air Force Association, there are upcoming classes. We're doing painting, we're doing woodworking, we're doing journaling, and all of these wonderful healing arts. So suffice it to say, Mission Warriors is military, veteran, and eventually we'll get to transitioning into other programs with first responders, how to benefit from these healing arts. So, and by the way, we are veterans who not only specialize in that art, but we ourselves have dealt with, some sort of adversity in our own art that we are teaching. Like in my case, obviously, I prefer to teach improv. I showcase how, in the applied improv side, how improv helped me heal, and then I show that to fellow veterans. So I'm able to stick my arm out and help other people up who might be dealing with stuff, and that's what Mission Warriors is all about.
That's wonderful. I love that, healing through the arts. And something it's obvious. And again, there's a reoccurring theme here of synchronicity. Synchronicity, not synchronicity,
Yeah.
but synergy. I guess it is.
Yeah.
taking your personal experiences, your passions, and doing good with it, and staying in your wheelhouse. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So there's a couple of things that you can do here. Yes, you can go to the Facebook page or seek it out and donate directly. However, if you donate through Compass will actually match the first $50 that we collect. And here's how this will work. If you go to the compassimprov.org/donate, I believe that website is also on your screen right now. Anything collected between now and Friday at midnight, that's the 16th. But do it now instead of waiting and getting distracted. Just go to that page. Click the donate, enter the amount of your choice. We'll total it all up, and we'll match up to $50. And so you could double your money.
That is awesome, Bob.
Yes, so yeah, it's something that we wanted to do to make this special and do something for the community as well. And so thank you, BJ, for being involved in that awesome organization. We will remind you again for the end of our time together here. Beautiful. So we're already starting to get some questions. I have more here too, but let's see what we've got here. Heather asks, "What's the most fun acting job you have done, and what was the favorite part that you played?" It's a favorite acting job.
That is a tough one. I'm a very sentimental person. I believe, generally speaking, most art is to serve a purpose. So especially now with what I teach with improv and showing how it can help heal in other ways. When we teach improv for non-performance reasons, we call that applied improv. So it has a purpose, right? Well, this is not this is not me working on 911. This is not me on Comedy Central or MTV or, any of that stuff. And I've been in quite a few independent features and short films. Believe it or not, I'm going to start with where I realized as like an adult when this was important. So when I lived in St. Louis, I worked with, and a lot of our friends, Bob, believe it or not, worked with the CIT program. And I was one of the first people hired in St. Louis to work with the crisis intervention training team for the Illinois State Law Enforcement Standards and Training Board. So we taught police officers how to deal with folks who might be going through a mental health crisis, which is instituted now nationwide. So we took these officers through a 40-hour volunteer at this time program. And the last 2 days, they would hire myself and a group of my friends to be role players in this. So I spoke with, and all of us that went through the training, we not only went through the training ourselves, but we spoke with the National Association for the Mental Illness so that we could really understand the types of people that we were going to be playing. We didn't want to do a disservice to, folks who might be in a mental health crisis. And these officers get real life training through this role play. They can hire other officers to do it, but why not hire a professional actor who's really going to do the work of knowing the mindset of these characters, as well as what the check marks are that these officers have to go through in order to have these characters open up. So either I was playing a manic or a depressive, and they would have these different scenarios. And so for the entire day, they would put us through with different groups of officers and how to deal with this. And then the next day we would do a recap and watch the video and talk from the perspective of the character. And as silly as it sounds, I mean, this is not, and I've performed at the Kennedy Center with Diavolo, who recently won America's Got Talent and was dancing with them, doing some wonderful things, and where I cried my eyes out. But doing this training with CIT was probably the most meaningful work I have done in a long time. And then now what I'm doing with Air Force Wounded Warrior, it fills my heart up to know that this art is going for good cause.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a great story there. Doug asks, what was something you learned from teaching? See, this is from a teaching perspective. And what advice do you have for people teaching in the arts? So maybe best practices, for somebody who is.
Yeah. one thing that I enjoy doing, and this really happened when I started doing applied improv, because we're not just teaching the performance standpoint. Listen, I could show you how to play a game or how to get into scenes, but I really want to get into the mindset of understanding why I'm playing a game or why I'm doing an exercise. And I need to make sure that my students understand that. So just a few hours ago, I was teaching a workshop, and I told them, if you don't understand why we're playing this game, not just like, oh my God, this is so much fun and we're laughing and having a good time and I'm coming up with these good characters, that's not the important thing. I want you to understand what is the takeaway that I'm trying to convey here. And based on, maybe it's my curriculum. If you're teaching for like a school, I taught at a performing arts high school for a long time, so I understand, following the curriculum that we're trying to get across. But do you understand why we're playing this exercise, or what's the theory here that I'm trying to get across? And if it's not connecting with what you're doing, or if you're zoning out because you don't get it, you need to stop and ask your teacher. And the teacher should, not only monitor your students, but say, okay, let's talk about it, and then do a debrief after the exercise. What is the takeaway that you got from this? What's something that you liked, learned, or appreciated? Does it connect with what I said we were doing today for our curriculum?
Cool. Give me an example of what would be perceived as a fun game, and what's the why that you would want to emphasize.
Sure.
With it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How about this warm up? Doing 5 things, and I do 5 things like this because obviously, when we're in theater, we're able to like smack our hips or whatever and go in a circle and all be looking at each other. But online, I have everybody do this to where I can see everyone's hands to create that sense of urgency, right? And then I say, hey, Bob. And Bob says, hey, what's up, EJ? I say, Bob, give me 5 blank, right? And then you fill in the blank. And then while you're counting those off, I have everyone count on screen so that everyone's engaged, right? Everybody counts. Now, most people are familiar with doing that. But the question is, why do we do it? Yeah. What is the takeaway from that, right? So doing this, it's giving me something as quick as you can, even if it doesn't make sense. In a perfect world, let's try to fill it in with not only what we think, but maybe what the audience for sure is thinking. Like if I said, Bob, give me 5 vegetables, go. And then you start naming some, of course, off the top of your head, you're probably going to give me a couple of like real vegetables. You might say broccoli, you might say carrot, cauliflower. But if you start to hesitate, remember what I said. And as we know in improv, there's no mistakes. You can literally say anything. Giving me something is more important than not giving me something, although not giving me something could be a character choice, right? And go with what you heard. I said, give me 5 vegetables. I didn't say, give me 5 actual in real life vegetables. So maybe you might say, cooked vegetables that were in my refrigerator for too long because I don't eat them fast enough.
Ketchup.
Yeah, right. So, and it's all about just going. And for your team that's there, I say, everyone's counting. And even if it sounds weird, we accept it because the rule is yes and, so we will count it no matter what.
Cool. Awesome. Here's one of my own questions here. If you had to like sum up like maybe as a teacher or as a performer, but if you had to sum up like something that you're known for, like everyone, we have a full or wide array of skills and experiences, but sometimes there's something that sticks out and makes us unique. And if you had to do some introspection, is there something that you're known for in the performance realm, or the biggest thing that you bring to the table as either an improviser or a coach? If I had to put you on the spot, what would that be?
I would, okay. So right now, this term, Second City has me teaching kids. And I've had some of the students before that are, so I'm teaching an advanced teen class right now for the next few weeks. And I think not only my adult students, that I rotate in and out of, but certainly the teens who like have had a couple of classes under their belt would say that I am super energetic, as you mentioned earlier, but that I don't stick on one game or exercise for too long, unless it's part of the curriculum, because they always say like people walk away from the exercises in the class like, oh my God, that was so, what all do we do today? Because I want to try to give a hodgepodge and a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
not just on a one-off. I'm saying like if I'm doing like a 4 or 5 week session, I can come back and hit it the next day. That way people don't get too caught up in it. And then we rotate, unless that's what we're focusing on. Like if I'm focusing on emotion or something like that, yeah, we're going to play a bunch of games that focus on emotion. I'm not going to switch it up. But I'm known for like probably bouncing around a bunch of different things.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you have a lot of energy. Yeah. And I like to bounce from game to game too. I don't know why. If it's a sense of impatience or something.
Yeah.
It's keeping things fresh. But then there's some people want to go, well, I want to spend probably more time on this to get this down first, and then
and I get that. And I get that. And I always tell my students, like, if you really liked a game or that you want to hit it more of course, it's probably in the curriculum. So I'm probably going to follow it next week or whatever, if everybody didn't get a turn. But I tell people, tell me either after class or before class next week, remind me that you really want to try something again, because if you really don't feel that you got the opportunity, like you as a student, you need to also be an advocate for yourself, which I know is easier said than done, because you're like, well, the teacher should know what they're doing. But the truth is, like, we're also just kind of guessing at how everybody's doing based on our interpretation. Yeah. So you need to also be your own best advocate there and tell us.
Absolutely. I believe this is another question from Doug. It says, what's the stunt or bit that stuck with you the most from your time as stunt boy or in Hollywood?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything you do different today is another follow-up there.
Yeah. So being the stunt boy for the morning show, first of all, it was an awesome experience. I mean, we went and toured. I went to different cities, before I was a big traveler, because they sent us to the other markets, and I got to like be on the air in their local cities and like, kind of be the ambassador for the show by doing that. So I did have a good time, but I really wished that I was more connected in the film and TV industry at that point, because I wish I would have gotten video of some of the stuff we did. Of course, we were on the radio, so it wasn't that important to like, have the visual. But I wish I would have gotten video for some of that stuff, like drinking milk from the cow's teat. They sent me to a farm, and then the cow pooped on my face. Like I wish I would have gotten a copy of all that. I wish I would have had video of me going to the gynecologist dressed as a woman, which years later, by the way, out here, probably about 5 years ago, I worked on, and it never saw the light of day, unfortunately, but I was on a hidden camera show, and I was like, oh my God, this is really like merging everything together again, because I loved hidden camera shows. Obviously, as an improviser, I love that element of we don't know what's going to happen to our targets. But there was that element there, and I grew up watching Candid Camera and all that stuff. So I loved that, and the opportunity to do that certainly was exhilarating. But it reminded me of being back on the morning show and wishing that I would have gotten video. As far as one specific stunt, to answer your question, Doug, probably going into the college. I don't know how I could have done it any different, because I was on the air, but I was in so much hot water over that. Like I was scared that, I was scared like I might go to jail or whatever. Luckily, it all worked out. By the way, you can Google my legal name and type in Belleville News Democrat, and you could still read the article. It's up online. Maybe things would have been a little bit different.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, stunt boy. Oh my gosh. Part of the evolution. So is there, let me ask you, this is one from my list here. Is there like a common improv principle that you maybe have a different take on it, or maybe you go against the usual advice on a certain principle? Anything stick out there? I mean, I know we all ideally are operating from the same list of principles, yes and so on, but sometimes I'll have a teacher who goes, I don't care if you ask questions or whatever. Are there something something that's a standard thing that they go against the grain? And
that's a great question, Bob. I've heard David Rosowski, who was one of my teachers, in an interview, who said he also doesn't care if people ask questions. Let me differentiate here what I'm talking about. If I'm teaching a beginning level improv 1 class, I normally say these are things that we try not to do. Mm-hmm. Not saying that you can't, it's just going to make your job easier if you don't ask questions. Because let's be honest, eventually you're going to get to a point in your career where none of these rules matter. You know, you're eventually going to get to that point. However, from a psychological standpoint, and this is me getting kind of heady and applied improv guy on you for a second, but when I think of yes-anding, I think of it as a wellness standpoint for a lifestyle, not just what we do when we improvise or when we teach improv, but what it can mean for us. And the example that I always use when I teach, like today, working with the wounded warriors, I said, you know, when my cancer relapsed and I was scared and I was depressed and I was pissed off at the Air Force because I was on temporary retirement and I was mad at the girl that left me because my cancer came back and I barfed on her shoes and she couldn't handle it. Like, I was in a really bad place. But what I learned was to all the stuff that I had been professing from a teacher standpoint, mainly at this point in performance-based improv, you know, teaching at Second City, teaching at the Improv Trick with Bill, and then doing workshops for performance. I needed to think about it from a applied improv standpoint and wellness and resiliency standpoint and say, okay, this happened to me. I can put one foot forward, which is the yes, and accept, okay, this happened. Yes. And I can do a little bit more. Okay, I can finally start doing shows again. I can, you know, and that was I was yes-anding myself. But also going back to something that Bill taught me early on, and I forgot who the originator of this quote is, but the famous improv wisdom of bring a brick, not a cathedral. That was important for me because, okay, you know, I gained a bunch of weight, and like right now I'm still the biggest I've ever been. And that has been a big thing with me psychologically, because I was dealing with a lot of depression and anxiety and all that, going through my medical board in August. They just finally permanently medically retired me from the Air Force after being on temporary retirement for 3.5 years, not knowing what was going to happen with my benefits. So I need to remind myself that I can bring a little bit of information. I can bring a little bit of exercise. I don't need to go and run a 5K like I want to in my head and get back to where I was. Mm-hmm. I could slowly do that a little bit of a time. And I can use that mindset that we do when we improvise with each other and not force myself to come up with the entire scene right then.
Wow. Because I've often said, improv principles can be applied to all areas of life, but you just,
totally,
the way you explained it, that's even a whole deeper level than even I usually apply it. So that is fabulous. I know one thing with and I know I've heard the bring a brick, not a cathedral from Bill, and I think, like I said, he probably got it from someone else. But I know one thing that I talk about is so that everybody is familiar with that thing that you showed earlier. Yes, and that's the rock bottom principle of improv. And I think most people get the yes part of it. Improv is based on agreement, so we always accept the offer that was made. But I think people get slipped up with the and they feel like it has to be a volume of stuff that you add to it, when just a little ping pong back and forth, you slowly reveal to each other what this scene is about. Who are these people, little by little, right?
Let me nerd out with you, Bob. Let me nerd out real quick. So here's another thing. So people say yes and, right? So I always have to make, especially if I'm coming in to teach like a workshop with the Educational Theater Association, International Thespian Society, they'll have, on their forums, I often open myself up to go teach for, high school and college theater groups. And I say, guys, what's the rules of improv? And of course, you'll get somebody who's like, the rules of improv are yes and, never say no. And first of all, I just want to say, you can absolutely say no, but what do you mean by that? What's the mindset, right? And people say, oh, well, you always have to accept. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean if I gave you in real life a a water gun full of black ink, and I said, go shoot your principal's, white shirt and with black ink, that you have to if we apply the rules of improv? And the answer there is no. Yes, the audience would love to see that. Yes, it will make it easier on yourself. But just because we say yes doesn't literally mean that you have to figuratively say yes, but you have to understand the circumstances and accept the reality that's being set up by your partner. But if I say, Dad, let's go rob that bank, that doesn't mean that Bob, as my dad, has to agree with doing that. He just has to accept the reality, right? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, you can say, oh, son, I know, there you go again, but it's not such a good idea right now, or it's grandma's birthday or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
So you're accepting it, but you can create some friction at the same time.
Exactly. Now, yes, it's going to be a lot easier if you go along with it, of course.
Yeah, it'd be fun to go, yeah, let's do it. We can use grandma's getaway car driver.
Right.
So it's all sorts of ways you can go. And then the thing, we brought up the thing of questions. I think it was Dave Rosowski. I attended one class of his like 5 years ago when I was in LA, and he's a pretty amazing, intense guy. So with questions, I always say, it's a good habit to develop, not to make statements instead of questions. But then the questions are okay, but it also depends on the context or the type of question. So a question like, who are you? Or what do you want to do? Is like just throwing it back on your partner to come up with something. But a question that's in character, and like if you were just like somebody wants you to be the mascot of the during the football halftime show, and you go, you want me to put on that chicken suit? It's kind of a question,
right? That's you're building
it moves the scene forward. It has emotion. It adds to the character. So it all depends on the type of question, right?
Right. Exactly. And Brilliant. sometimes questions are gonna happen though. What, you're pregnant? Like, I mean, sometimes those things are gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. So last chance to type in another question for BJ. That's right. This is the international symbol for typing, or it could be this too, I guess.
Right. True.
With your phone. Let's just talk about Mission Warriors one more time. Give them a final plug. Is there? Did you mention? I think you said there's a number of programs going on, but is there like a specific thing?
Yes.
Right now.
Yep. We absolutely have some stuff going on. And by the way, this is not only our first time where we opened up, in case you don't want to go through here at Compass Improv, which I hope you will, to do your donation so that they can match us. Yeah. But if you go over to Mission Warriors on Facebook, we just set up that Facebook donation thing. We are a new nonprofit. This is the first time we're asking for donations. You're helping military, veterans.
Whoa.
You like that?
It's a disco light.
That was my ring light just went a little nuts. So
that was pretty awesome.
It was. To be honest, that's my awareness that I need to be doing a dance party. So we're gonna have to do a dance party when
we will do it at the end.
Yeah, totally.
I can make that work.
So Mission Warriors not only helping military, veterans, and then eventually we're working on programming for first responders, but we have a current program right now. You can Google Mission Arts Air Force Association, and we're bringing healing arts to the Wounded Airmen program with Air Force Association. So you'll be helping to cover costs, we're getting our art supplies to these wounded warriors and these veterans, paying the instructors who, are veterans themselves to teach different modalities of art, by the way. It's not just one size fits all. And a lot more programming as we move forward. We're reaching out to other sister services as well and their associations so that we can tie in there and bring the arts to the military and veterans as a whole.
That is awesome. And just to remind everybody, if you send your donations through Compass between now and midnight on Friday, this coming Friday, April 16th, Compass will match the first $50 that come in, so you could double your pleasure, double your fun, and your contribution. And the URL should be right on the image here on the page, but it's compassimprov.org/donate. Fill in the amount of your choice, and we will total that up and double it up to $50. So that is awesome. And so I'm just going to ask one last question here.
Sure.
I believe so. We talk a lot about advice for beginning improvisers, and we've talked about some of the principles. I think I've asked my last couple of guests, or at least I think I asked Ed this last month, and it's I think it's an interesting one for what's the mistake or what's something that like more seasoned improvisers like are there any like bad habits that you get into or something that you've seen seasoned improvisers it would be helpful to keep for them to keep in mind X, Y, or Z to continue to be sharp players.
Yeah, I would fall back on the old classic um, adage that we say in improv, which is the scene or your life begins at the moment you step out of your comfort zone. So the problem is we get set, and I do this a lot in my two-man show. I'm on a team called Tackle Box. Josh Tariff and I, we've been playing together since our beginning IO West days. We're still doing show. We did a show remotely last week. And we get set in playing the same types all the time. So not only am I always playing like a dad, he'll play a son, or we get into these bits where like, there's a problem in the office, let's try and show some diversity in there. And this is both virtual and when we're in person, let's try and throw some different things that might make you feel a little bit more comfortable. I mean, when's the last time you just simply said, I'm going to initiate a scene in a weird position?
Oh, yeah.
Just something just to change it up so that we're not always doing talking heads and we're not two humans. We don't have to be human. That's the beauty of the art form that we do. So think of other ways to diversify everything that's happening, the things that we're saying, the tone, the emotion, just change it up as best you can.
I know one time I was doing, I think you may know who Michael Barrows Fitzgerald is.
Love him.
Great. Yeah, he's part of my normal or my regular performance cast. And years ago, we were at the Wolf Cafe and we were given a scene and bowling alley was our location. And I wouldn't normally go into this kind of like, I have this sort of like, hey, Earl, hey, how you doing? We're going to be here at the bowling alley and whatever. That's kind of a guy that I go to a lot. But I said, I'm going to do something different and I'm going to initiate. And I just started using a weird voice. I didn't even know what I was doing. I went, oh, Frederick, it's so great. Thank you for bringing me to the bowling alley. I had no idea what I was doing. He heard that and he said, well, Bartholomew, it's about time we turn this place into a gentleman's club. So he took it as like I was being royalty, and we ended up doing a scene about these two like treating the bowling alley like we were at a polo, for aristocrats, and it just made the whole, just by taking that chance, not knowing what the hell I was doing, led to a really fun scene.
It was something different, and it was you not only stepped out of your comfort zone. That's a big choice when your go-to is always, like you were saying, this is a great opportunity to really explore something different. And obviously playing with great people like, Fitz, man, anytime I could play with that guy is a blessing.
And that came from him listening to me and interpreting what he heard. He took it as raw or whatever. Like it was almost sounded like the Queen or whatever in that voice that I. So when you've got two good players or two players listening to each other, and supporting each other, beautiful things can happen. So that's a great point. I think a great thing to end on. And did we mention this thing's coming up April 30th? Mission Warriors. Did you?
Indeed. Of course, we're supporting Mission Warriors here. So thank you again for your donations. And on the 30th of April, I believe that's a Friday, Mission Warriors has the Mission Arts with the Air Force Association. And that is actually our improv workshop. So if you know an Air Force veteran, have them Google Mission Arts Air Force Association, and they can RSVP to come and take that workshop with me.
That's awesome. I want to mention that in our next guest in May will be Cooper Shaw. She's also originally from St. Louis and has relocated to your neck of the woods. She's got a lot of experience and a lot of great stories to share. So that'll be Monday, May 10, starting also at 7 p.m. Central. So put that on your calendars, and we're going to be. I'm really having a blast doing these. I'm going to be booking people. Send us your suggestions. Who would you like? We're going to go outside of St. Louis. Actually, I would love to do like Dave Rosowski. He would be a great guy to have.
Yeah.
And a lot
Jamie
of
Moyer. Jamie Moyer. Yeah,
Oh,
she's such a great strong female, improviser and actor. It's just, I love seeing powerful people on stage, and she just has the presence.
Cool. I just wrote that down. And then for people who want to know more about you, where can they find you on the interwebs?
So obviously Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff, BJ Lange. My handles across the board are at BJ Comedy. And if you tell me that you're an improviser from one of the birthplaces of modern day improv, St. Louis, Missouri, I will follow you back. You can also check out bjlang.com. But yeah, the history of St. Louis, that's why I'm here, Bob. It's because the history of St. Louis, not only am I wearing my hat right now, Bob, but you can't see it, but right here, I have a gooey butter cake and some toasted raviolis.
Let's beware where you're pointing there. So look, gooey butter cake. Got it. And you're right. The Compass Improv is named that because of the Compass players that performed in Gaslight Square in the late 50s. Thank you. Oh, I like that. I'm going to have a little of that myself. There's your
T-Rab.
So sweet. I'm getting a cavity here. All right. Thanks a lot, BJ. Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate you being here. We'll be back next May 10th with Cooper Shaw. Have a good night. Good week.
Bye.
So long for now.